Hi everyone, it's Kimberly. This is a Friday message for you, and welcome back to the Illumin Guru channel. And for those of you who are on the twin flame path and you're navigating your ascension and looking for more of the self-help tools or self-mastery tools, you can visit my site vibup.com, and you can take the online courses on there. Now, a lot of what we do on there is we help you clear out the root issues as well as come into your alignment. And when we get to that stage where we're practicing alignment, reclaiming our power, stepping into our divinity, our authenticity, speaking our truth, and learning how to harness our inner polarities in healthy balance, after we've kind of cleaned things out, cleaned out the closet, brought the stuff in the subconscious mind forward, we've got new awareness, we've got new epiphanies that we're bringing into this alignment. And that's a lot of the level 2 courses are about alignment. But in this video, I wanted to just talk to you about something that we address in those level 2 courses, which is self-love. And one thing that's been coming up a lot and a common theme in my sessions, and even as a mindfulness practice within myself, is the idea of being soft with oneself. Okay, so I have a variety of courses that help you tap into your belief systems, your thought process, your negative thinking, loops of negative thinking, how you get out of that, where it stems from, as well as becoming aware of your inner critic and transforming that, integrating your mental, emotional, and physical bodies. That's all on those BiBUP courses. Okay, I'll put the links below. But beyond that, well, I'll just say not beyond that, but so that's all there for you, okay, if you want to really dig into it. But in this message, I want to give you sort of some encouragement around this. So notice where you're talking negatively to yourself, okay, because this is all part of being self-loving. And we so often beat ourselves up. We are hard on ourselves. We are rigid with ourselves. We compare ourselves to others. We compare ourselves to former versions of ourselves. We compare ourselves to future versions of ourselves, or who we want to be. And all of that is focused on not being enough or lack of, right? And when you're trying to come into alignment and self-love and a state of trust, all of that lack focus is actually being allocated to fear. And so you're going to stay out of alignment as you do that. One thing I have to remind you is, I posted a quote recently. I'm sure you guys have heard these quotes, and there's little memes that fly around social media, but I reposted something recently on the Illumin Guru Facebook and Instagram page, and it was, saying, speak nicely to yourself because you're listening, right? You're the one that's listening. So I always ask my clients and my students, would you talk the way that you talk to yourself? Would you talk that way to your best friend or to someone that you look up to or respect? Probably not. So we all have varying degrees of inner critic and how we speak to ourselves, but just start to be mindful of it, okay? Start to be aware of it. One technique I give you in the BiBUP courses is shadow yourself for a day. I always tell my students that. Shadow yourself for a day. That means for one day, for 24 hours, this is where you become hyper aware of those voices and how you speak to yourself, okay? And so how do we soften that? Well, I find that when we go back to the definition of who are you? Well, who are you? I'm a divine being who radiates light. That's who I am. But most of us, from our wounding, from the karma we brought in, through the programming, we don't have a connection to that divine self-worth. We have been broken apart from that, fragmented. And so we look for our worth outside of ourselves, either through attaching our energy to others, twin flames, right? I hear my twin flame completes me, or that's the feeling of home, and I can only have that with him or her. And when that disappears, or when that gets threatened, or when someone leaves your life, you feel like, oh, the rug's been pulled out. There's this big gaping hole. But that big gaping hole is where you're not aligned with yourself. And that's where you've abandoned yourself. And those relationships are just mirrors for it. So when we do have an unhealthy sense of self and self-love and self-worth, we will attach our value to things outside of ourselves, and we will line up our energy to things that will fill up that hole, right? To fill up that void of where we've left ourselves. So this could show up as filling yourself up with, material possessions, with food, with drugs or alcohol, with success or accolades, right? Because that's all part of your, let's say, like out there worth, right? That's not who you are as a divine being who radiates light. But oftentimes we attach our value out there. Now, in here, what is your value attached to? Ask yourself that. And you can really dig into this in the Vibe Up courses, right? Because they give you practical tools and questions and worksheets and things that you can do in your everyday life to rediscover what your true value is, okay? And where that stems from within you. This could also show up and where we, like I said, where we attach our energy. Where we're latching onto something, and I've been talking about this in a lot of the recent readings, what like needing to let go of those attachments, those places where we've stayed, in toxic cycles, or we're clinging on to someone else to avoid ourselves. And even though you might not see it that way, that's essentially what's happening. Every place you're attached out here, waiting on outcome, attached to someone else's energy, looking for the answer from someone, needing the fulfillment from outside of yourself. That is a place where you're not coming all fully into yourself. And the shift is remarkable when you do come into yourself, because you will not have to talk harshly to yourself to get yourself to stop doing the other thing. And that's like where a big misconception is. I hear clients, I even hear the dialogue come out in sessions, like they start immediately going, you're right, I have to stop doing that. I have to stop doing that. Well, just by doing that, you're being really rigid with yourself. You're creating more resistance in your own energy field when you tell yourself to stop doing something. So I would highly recommend, instead of looking at what you need to stop doing or slapping yourself on the hand or wrist, and punishing yourself because you're doing something bad, but you should be doing something else, that I don't know why I keep doing that. These are cycles, right? You're going to keep yourself in cycles of resistance. You'll align, then you'll go back, and then you'll stay in this cyclical motion. So instead of that, see if you can replace that with what feels good to me, right? Ask those questions. What feels good to me? And where can I shift my focus so that I'm focusing on self rather than the other person, okay? And how can I do that? And I highly recommend you do that through creative and meditative practice, okay? So that anything creative, anything meditative, anything that puts you in alignment. And again, in those Vibe Up courses, we have you explore all of that. So if you don't know what those things are, those courses will assist you. So when you are aligned with yourself, doing things more for you, where your thoughts aren't spiraling outside of yourself, where you're not beating yourself up, and you can be more present. You can actually maintain a state of presence. And that way you're not future tripping, past dwelling, loop thinking, right? Again, all these things we address and we give you the tools for in these online courses. But I wanted to also remind you, just as you go through your everyday, to be softer with yourself. I hear all the time the dialogue come rushing out, and it's harsh. And we're hard with ourselves. And this is a time to be really mindful of that. Ask yourself, how would I treat my best friend? How would I treat my child? How would I treat my pet? When you see your pet, you don't say, hey, Stella. I don't say, hey, Stella, couldn't you have done that better? Geez, Stella. No, I don't do that. We don't do that with our pets, right? We love our pets. We say, oh, Stella, oh, baby. And no matter what she does, right? Even if she does something bad. And Well, I set boundaries with her, and I'm sure you set boundaries with your pets and you train them. But other than that, they're saying, like, you're nicer to your pets than you are to yourself, or you're nicer to your best friend than you are to yourself. So the overall message is become a voice of support for yourself. Also, where we're looking for support and validation outside of ourselves is so often where we're not supporting or validating ourselves from within. Then we feel hurt by others. But how can we start attracting more supportive relationships? How can we start feeling more approved of? By starting to do that from within. One of the ways that I give you to do that is through writing, and I give you a whole practice to do with writing, holding space for yourself, reading it back. And again, I'm not going to go in depth with that because you guys can become members of Vibe Up and get all those tools. But I wanted to bring a couple of books forth today that I really love, okay? And one of them is the Practice You Journal. And there's a free blog on Vibe Up. You don't have to become a member to read it. You can just read the blog. So go to vibup.com, click on blog, and I think it's called The Writing Ritual. I wrote a blog about the writing ritual and give you some of these tools. But at the bottom of that blog, I introduced this journal. It's by Elena Brower. She's fabulous. If you don't know of her, check her out, okay? And it's like almost on watercolor paper. Can you see it? It's awesome. It's so high quality. It's only like $15. And it's got these beautiful watercolor type impressions and drawings. And each page prompts you to write something self-reflective, right? It's actually a guided journal. So this one says, this is how I love my body. This is how my body feels after meditation. And then you get this workbook space, right? I'm just going to flip to random pages so you get an idea. This is a whole page of teachings, with guidance. And then it says on the adjacent page, choose a teaching from the facing page that speaks to you. Write the steps to make it so. So it says, have no agenda, listen respectfully, mother yourself, trust your intuition, be comfortable with silence. These are all ways that you would start to practice that or talk about that with yourself. There's things about home, integrity. Let's see. I love. What do you love, right? I can't speak highly enough about it. This page says, this is what home feels like to me. Okay. This is when I feel most alive. I can bend myself, and that can help someone else. Okay, so that's about service. This is about feeling alive. There's so much in here. I could go on and on. This is just, this is freedom. Okay, so it asks you to think about freedom, and then there's an adjacent exercise. These books and these exercises are just really, really, really cool. This one says, this is how I welcome life force into my body, life force energy. Okay, so I highly recommend you get this. It's awesome. It's a great way to start to practice methods of loving yourself, holding space for yourself, validating yourself, spending that one time with yourself, that intimacy that you need to create in order to feel more self-loving, more supported, more heard. Okay? You've got to hear yourself first. The other thing I wanted to bring to you is so many of you in my sessions always ask me, like, oh, I'm delving into my psychic gifts. Like, I don't know what I should do. Some of you dabble, I know, with like tarot cards. And I always say, take a psychic development class. That's for beginners. That's a great way to get your feet wet with or mediumship for beginners. With your gifts so that you can trust in them more. Those are fun. Have fun with it. Take it recreationally. But moreover, many of you start to dabble with tarot, but you don't learn the spreads, or you have conflicting sort of, maybe you're intuitively feeling out the cards, but you don't know the definitions. And I always recommend, once you get familiar with the cards, go, take a tarot course so you can learn the spreads. But two books that I really love that I recommend are Power Tarot, which is going to teach you the spreads, okay? This is an amazing, amazing resource for reading the spreads. And the Book of Tarot, which is Danielle Noel, and this is really amazing for learning the definitions of the cards and the meanings of the cards. It's really new age and modern, and it's easy to understand. The pictures are beautiful. The meanings and descriptions are awesome, and it's just a beautiful book. So those two I would highly recommend as well. So spend some time with yourself in meditative practice, in mindfulness, in honoring and nurturing your gifts. Be kinder to yourself. Be mindful of how you're speaking to yourself, and be soft with yourself, okay? And turn up the self-love. I'll see you guys all soon. Take care. Mwah. Bye.